Hi,
That's okay.
Jan.
Right. Hi, Hannah. We're going to try something new here, aren't we?
Yeah, so welcome to the first Innovation Insight Forum, where I'm going to ask you some questions and hope we get some further insights from you. Okay, so
Yeah,
are you
let's
ready for
build
the
on your
first
excellent
one?
work. I am, yes. You're going to ask me
Okay.
some questions, right? About the 4 points that you've made in your video.
Yes. So the first one is Agritech, right? So what do you think about Africa taking a lead in technology and coming up with, using satellite to help farmers? That's something quite far-fetched that we didn't expect before. So what do you think of that?
I think it's awesome. I think it's a really powerful way to democratize the power of digitalization in a very tangible way. I lived in Cambodia for a couple of years and saw how much impact even low tech can have in an agricultural environment. And so to kind of take the idea of using satellite imagery to scan the efficacy of a farmer and how they're farming their crops to kind of build a credit worthiness, and because you can look back over the years, how productive has that field been on average. Very advanced technology, but basically what that is going to come down to is that farmer can then access a little bit of microcredit to then be able to afford some more fertilizer or maybe a motorbike to drive their goods to the market. So it's I think that's really the next level, building on what Grameen Bank did in terms of microloans and microcredit, but using data driven approaches to empower these individuals. And so Africa is an untapped powerhouse. It's got billion people who are still, and many of them in a subsistence economy, who are working in this. So it's a really effective way of taking really advanced technology and taking it to a large number of people who could really benefit from it. Very exciting. And then, of course, what's ironic is that recently I was reading that Grameen Bank, who the founder of which earned a Nobel Prize for his work in micro lending, actually have offices in New York. So it's an interesting idea that how a micro financing organization that started in Bangladesh is actually bringing its model to the low income people in New York, right? So it's a kind of from in a simplistic way from the third world to the first world idea there. So it's potential there that perhaps the technologies, methodologies that are built in Africa using this kind of technology could perhaps be exported around the world. And that then sort of it's this idea about building a core competence around an area where often what I think is underestimated is you need to build, it's like what we see in Silicon Valley, that network effect. So could Africa be a sort of a farm valley in a way where you're using these really advanced technologies to make a quantum leap forward in agricultural productivity? Aspirational idea, but why not? Very talented, smart, hardworking people could really make a big difference there.
Okay. And just to get some expert opinion from you, what do you think will help them take whatever they have to the next level? So in terms of that innovation graph, right? So you have stealth and then you have your scales and then you grow bigger. So what will make a company like Agritech becomes just off the chart, the next Google? What do you think they will require?
Well, I mean, in the sense of when we look at Google, I think what Google have done really well is they just focus on their simple offering of search to the extent today that, we don't ask God, we ask Google, right? This is literally true, right? And it, we know it always gets a smile, but it's funny because it's true, right? And think about it, we have a being, an entity that we can ask any question to. And so what Google has done well since its inception, and I remember reading about Google in New Scientist magazine when the Sergey Brin and Larry Page, when they developed the algorithm. It was actually one of the first places to report it was New Scientist, which is a science magazine. And so that was a science breakthrough that then became it was in the Economist, which was then in investment magazines. So what I'm trying to make the point here is that they focused on search and stuck to that. So my suggestion for these guys would be to focus on your core offering and don't get distracted from it. Empower, the world's farmers and use that technology. Don't get too seduced by all the shiny lights of all the extra bells and whistles that you can add onto something. In the same way that Google has maintained its focus on search and enabling search. So that could be an idea for them to recognize the value that lies there and having a multi-decade approach. If you're able to build in the next, let's say Google's been around for, call it 20, 25 years. If you can spend 20 to 25 years building out expertise in the agricultural space using digital technology, it could yield enormous benefits. So I think there's a tendency today to kind of go in for get rich quick schemes. Like you just need to, pump up the share price and then do a SPAC and then somehow get rich quick. So resisting that urge, focusing more on serving humanity, and to build out the value proposition there to truly help people who are in low income environments, but are nonetheless probably very smart, hardworking people, I think could yield enormous rewards.
All right. Thank you for sharing. Those were some very powerful insights, and I hope that you help people listening to you today. So speaking of the getting rich quick scheme, so we have crypto coming to, I'm not coming to Malaysia, but like the ministry talking about crypto in Malaysia. So what are your thoughts around that?
Well, it always amazes me that Malaysia always punches above its weight. It's always in the news doing interesting things. So I'm pleased. I think it's a good thing because the question with crypto now is when, not if. It is going to go in that direction one way or another. I firmly believe that. And so I think that they're starting the conversation shows a forward-looking country and bringing that level of conversation into the mainstream. 5 years ago, I started talking about Bitcoin 2017. So that's just about 5 years ago. People thought I was nuts. They thought it was, a scam and all these things. And so suddenly now to have the ministry proposing, in a formal way to do this, it shows how quickly things can change. So that's been 5 years. Where might we be in 5 years' time again? I think we could, really have a very different kind of financial reality. And I think what crypto also offers, and you and I know that, Hannah, right? We've invested in crypto and it's changed our lives, is that not many of us can necessarily afford to buy land, buy property, and all these things, but the right way at the right time, we can afford to buy crypto, and that can make a really big difference to our level of wealth. So recognizing that, and especially that it's young people who often stand to make a little bit of a gain from it, I think also further empowers that generation. So I think it's exciting. Obviously done with the right way, with the right kind of regulation, but I think it will come. And Malaysia being a pioneer of that, I think will serve this country well.
All right. But I wouldn't really say Malaysia being a pioneer of that, right? Because we have Singapore next door, who's actually a crypto hub, right?
It's a crypto hub, but how far is the government going in talking about actually um, bringing it into a legal state, right? I think on the one hand, because the challenge around crypto is going to be how much it fundamentally challenges the traditional banking models. If you issue a central bank currency, you no longer need a bank, right? Because the way that banking works is you have the central bank like Bank Negara, they print a bunch of money, then you have an intermediary like Maybank who take that money and then they give that money as loans to everyone else. To kind of use a simple model in the past is like movie studios made movies, they would give it to Blockbuster, and then Blockbuster rent the movies to everyone else. But when you have a central bank digital currency, you don't need that anymore. The central bank can just instantly send money to everyone else's private account. So you fundamentally disrupt the banking model of Industry 3.0, really. And that's what Maybank and many other banks base their existence around of. Right? They have essentially a sort of an oligopolistic or almost monopolistic access to the money that central banks print. So the challenge for incumbents like Singapore is to transition from what might be called like poster activities, where it looks like we're a crypto hub, and yes, there are crypto activities happening, but how entrenched is that allowed to become? Right? It's a bit like car companies in the past talking about, yeah, we're doing a bit of electric whiz, but you're never actually seriously going to transition from combustion engines to electric car engines, right? Germany, BMW produced electric cars, quite a while, like the i3 and things like that. But the only reason they're going serious about electric now is because Tesla is kicking their ass. And so the danger when these kind of places say that they are a crypto supporter is to what level are they going to mainstream it? And I think that they're going to face a challenge of the incumbents. Singapore has banks like DBS, it has banks like UOB. It's a financial center. So there's a challenge there in transitioning from being at the core of Industry 3.0 finance, certainly in Southeast Asia, to being at the core of Industry 4.0 finance. And in order to do that, you're going to have to change power structures. You're going to have to change who owns what, who makes money out of it at a very fundamental level, and that's very challenging. And the only way that really happens is through creative destruction. So one of the things that's interesting about Malaysia is that, and that's one of the reasons why I believe in Malaysia, and I think it's exciting as an innovation space, is it has a certain magic in which there a certain kind of creative destruction can happen, which might not be possible in Singapore. And so it remains to be seen. Are crypto hubs like Singapore able to really follow through on the promise of crypto and transition to a truly 4.0 digital finance? Or will they kind of remain a bit stuck? Certainly, like the German car manufacturers have been certainly a little bit stuck in their electrification efforts. Now, of course, that's changing, right? So let's see where it goes in 5 years' time. But it's going to be exciting. And you know, as the different places push each other, as Malaysia pushes in one direction, Singapore might respond. Maybe Thailand comes in. What's ultimately worth noting is that the tone of the conversation has fundamentally changed compared to 5 years ago. So let's see where it takes us.
Okay, so my last question to you is about the Google taking over health tech. So it's a really a two-part question. So first of all, what do you think of this new disruption coming? Do you think it's going to because Google is available to everyone, right? Everyone has a Gmail and everything. So how disruptive do you think that will be?
When a while ago, a very good friend of mine is a doctor, and when I was in London, when I was setting up Leadapreneur about 10 years ago, yeah, it's about 10 years ago, we actually looked at setting up a business that would help digitize doctors' notes. So a doctor is sitting, not sitting, is standing at the bed of a patient, and the doctor writes some notes, and then, what the medication they might need or anything, and that piece of paper goes somewhere and is stored somewhere and needs to be retrieved somewhere. And that is just such a messy and difficult thing to do because hospitals are very challenging environments. And so the whole healthcare record system is really difficult. The consultancy Accenture, I forget the numbers, but it's something like billions of pounds were spent by the British government to try and digitalize record keeping for the NHS. And it was a complete write-off, like literally zero value was achieved out of billions and billions of pounds. So it's an extremely difficult problem. And so from what we were able to see, Google is able to, you really give that that effortless access to patient records in a way that presumably is secure, safe, or all the right things that we want to hear. That's magical. That's amazing. And then I was thinking, maybe it's about really combining the firepower of the different tech titans, right? Apple, for example, has the Apple Watch, an amazing device where it can measure heart rates and quite advanced medical insights from it. So maybe being able to power the sort of the software-driven approach of Google with the hardware approach of Apple, and maybe some others coming in there as well, could really be a game changer, because the reality of patient records today is that the vast majority of it is literally on a piece of paper that looks like this, right? It's just a bunch of notes scribbled in a file somewhere that someone has to remember, and it doesn't have that ease of use. So in a way, it's promising that it's taken this long for them to figure it out, because it shows that they might really have figured it out. Rather than rushing out a solution that didn't actually really work, this could potentially be really powerful. But Google have also launched things in the past, like Google Currents and other things that don't work. So it remains to be seen if this one be effective.
Okay, and then my last question of the day is again on Google Care Studio and amount of data that we're now giving to Google. And now we have the health part of it, right, which are really personal data, and tying up to how much data we usually give out to people. And something that you said earlier was about becoming a citizen of Google. So, what are your thoughts on data being shared and becoming a citizen of Google eventually?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'll say something that will controversial, it is important to have conversations about data, and I understand the legality point of view. And yes, in the future, if Google paid me for my data, of course, I 100% support that, and I believe in especially the European approach of data privacy. Nevertheless, living in the real world of it all being a bit of a mess, I have personally don't feel I've ever suffered from sharing my data with these tech companies, and only ever, at best, I'm satisfied or continue to be delighted. And I think it's worth recognizing that I get so much value in terms of getting services for free that are only improved by me sharing my data. Google offers me more relevant insights and adverts. I'm able to have more customized solutions. I have more effective Netflix streaming and Spotify playlists. Grab is better at offering me all kinds. I think that we should recognize that if we don't share this data, then the foundational aspect of Industry 4.0, which is mass individualization, is not possible. So I see it as a fair trade-off that I share my data to get the things that I want. I don't, maybe I'm being surveilled, sure, but I just don't think I'm that interesting to to be worth monitoring. Maybe of course those words might come to haunt me. I don't know, but I sometimes think that we forget the benefits that we get out of it. Like I use WhatsApp every day, right? I think my phone told me the other day I spent 6 hours on WhatsApp or something like that in a week or something. Um, it's a miracle. It's a miracle tool, right? If you said to people 50 years ago, I can reach anyone on earth for free and video call them and send them funny stickers and files and everything else just so effortlessly, again for free. It's just astonishing, right? So I think we get a lot of value out of digitalization and the sharing of the data. But that being said, I do support the general progression towards a much more thoughtful and structured approach to it. But as we get there, I don't think we should forget the benefits that we get from sharing our data. I don't think it's all bad.
Okay, so the ending note here is it's not too bad to share your data. So that's what we're taking away from this part of the question. So thank you so much,
Well,
Jan,
yeah,
for
I
your
mean,
time.
we don't get anything for free, right? We don't get anything for free, right? Yeah, I am the product, right? I am the guy, I am the sucker, but I'm happy to be the sucker. So give me the good stuff, right? And then let me get on with my life.
All right. So, okay, so that would be the end of it. Thank you so much for your time, and we look forward to having your insights again next week.
Thanks a lot, Hannah.
Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the Leadapreneurs YouTube channel to get your weekly updates.